Good evening, everyone. It is about 6:09. We're going to delay until 6:15 so we can get an in-person quorum. So those of you that are watching from home, we appreciate your patience, and we'll be back and call this to order in about 6 to 7 minutes. Thank you.
Or it'll go to the bottom. Like I have it set up where it says this week or next week if I could put it on that computer just to see how it looks up there and see what changes I need to do.
Of course you can.
I can help you do it if you need. Thank you.
And I'm a grammar Nazi, so if you want to send it to me, I'll fix it.
Thank you. Yeah. I was gonna, use the AI software to fix the grammar and stuff, but I have a slide that shows AI, like AI generated PowerPoint. Just show the differences.
Skynet told me not to worry.
Oh, I was way off. I told everybody 4. I didn't. It's up to you guys, not up to me.
There's other candies and stuff in that drawer.
Oh, there is. She's probably good with that. I have muffins and I have everything in my office if you need anything. Okay. That's, no. All right, let's get on the road.
We want to keep Ashton happy, so.
Did you unmute now?
Yeah, I
We're live, ready to go?
ready.
Now 6:15.
Okay. All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting into order. It's 6:16 p.m. It is July 22nd, 2024. It is our budget workshop meeting. Can I get roll call, please?
Yes. Mayor Molly Young,
Here.
Vice Mayor Rick Sartori,
Here.
Councilmember Lori Brandon, Councilmember Patrick Painter, Councilmember Jason French.
Here.
Patrick is on.
Yeah,
Zoom.
can we recognize Patrick's here by Zoom?
Patrick, you hear us?
I think he's logging in now.
Yeah, sorry, my mute button would not undo. Yeah, I'm here.
All right, with that, Jeremy, I will give you the floor.
Thank you. This is our second budget workshop. As you guys know, after the first budget workshop, we had maybe several, I'd say 4 items or so that were still kind of up in the air because it was kind of a very early in the process for the budget. We have worked through some of those items. I'll point out a couple of things that maybe we still have to get through before we adopt a final budget. This first part you guys have in your packet, but it's just really just the overview of the budget process and how we use this as a guide for budgeting and to work through the council initiatives. These were key dates that we had. Obviously, June 24th is our first budget workshop. July 22nd, we do have an August date, I believe, that we picked recently for a third workshop if needed, if council has some items still out there that need to be addressed. And then, of course, we did set the dates for the future budget hearings of September 5th and the final budget hearing of September 12th. Overall, no planned millage increase. Our overall increase in ad valorem taxable values is 9.56%. Significant portion of this is due to the new construction or other property sales. Homestead property is limited to a CPI or 3%, whichever is less. More than 90% of the village residential properties are homesteaded. Non-homestead properties limited to 10%. Commercial property, that's mostly commercial property. And the chart represents our millage rate, which shows that we have had a steady millage rate, and our total increase has typically went down every year with our other taxing authorities. And so in 2025, we are recommending a 6.4595 and keeping the millage rate the same. Some of the changes since the first workshop, the significant changes, we have an increase in general fund revenues, and so $74,000 was due to the values being certified by the appraisal district. And then we did decrease enforcement of JIC. As you guys know, we had a code enforcement presence over in JIC, and they were paying a portion of that salary. As of the next fiscal year, they plan to take that back in-house and do it themselves. Then we had decrease other miscellaneous revenues of $5,000. Increase in general fund expenditures. We decreased system maintenance and supplies, $22,000. Brad was able to get a grant through the state of Florida, and so you'll see that in this fund as well as the building fund and water fund as well. You'll see a decrease in expenditures. Decrease in transfer to capital projects due to utilizing alternative funding sources. We did have that plan, a planning project for Remembrance Park to be out of the 303 fund. We moved it to the 301 fund, so that would decrease our expenditures out to the 303 fund. We increased part-time code compliance. We are recommending hiring a public works maintenance worker, so that 77,817 is all in for that position with benefits and all the other run-ups that go with the salary. Final benefits adjustments is $52,000. That's our health insurance. Our final health insurance was a 16% increase, and so that $52,000 is the difference between what we budgeted for and the actual values that came in. And then we are increasing the allocation of fund balance of $16,065. Some other significance with the other funds, significant changes. The building fund revenues, we're increasing the appropriated fund balance of $6,986. The expenditures this is that grant that Brad was able to get through the state of Florida, so we're decreasing those expenditures $2,568, and then the final benefits adjusted for the building department is $9,554. Increase in water fund revenues, that's allocating fund balance, and then the expenditures that go with that is assistant utility director. We are proposing that. We have over $14 million in capital projects coming online next year. A big majority of those are the water utilities. We used to have a assistant utility director. I haven't funded that position the last couple of years. With the presence of the capital projects, I am recommending we bring back an assistant utility director, hopefully to oversee most of the capital projects. Obviously, they'll have some other responsibilities, but that'll be a big portion of what they do. Increase in capital improvement fund expenditures. So we're increasing the planning for Remembrance Park Phase 2, and then decreasing the money that we had to allocate to fund balance from there, and then decrease from the general fund $103,000. So there's some accounting going on with that particular project for Remembrance Park. And then an increase in stormwater, very minimal, just adjusting the final benefits for that. Budget summary for all funds, and I know that there was some little bit of questions on the vehicle replacement fund, and so on the right it says general fund increase 11.8% overall due to mainly the startup costs for the vehicle replacement fund. We do have $1.1 million out of the general fund. There's another slide that shows $1.548 million, but each out of the capital vehicle replacement fund, each fund contributes into that fund. So the contribution out of the general fund is $1.1 million. This is just a pie chart, and you guys have seen this before, just where the expenditures go. 60% of the expenditures are for employee benefits and salaries and wages. General fund proposed revenues, big majority, the big green arc there is the general property taxes. 64% come from property taxes. General fund, this is our general fund, our reserves that we have, and our target reserves. Our 3-month target is $4,207,000. So every time your expenditures go up, which our expenditures this year are up almost $800,000, obviously your 3-month target will go up. And so the unassigned fund balance at the end of this year, we're projecting to be $1.765 million. Which is on par with where we were last year. Building fund, you guys have seen this. This is our expenditures. We are planning on using $608,000 out of the reserves that we have for the building fund that built up. And then that's our breakdown. Our operating expenditures, $419,000, personnel services, $757,000. Target for the building fund is 6 months. The reason why it's 6 months, not 3 months, is typically the building fund, they receive their permit fees and then they expend their funds. So typically you want to have a lot longer target for that to give them a chance to have those expenditures. So that's why you see 6 months. And so at the end of this budget year, we're estimating $463,000. Capital Projects Fund, you guys have seen this list. We've talked about them a little bit. I mean, obviously, if there's questions with those, we can go over them. I think a couple of the highlights that we have is we do have the Tequesta Park project at $931,000 that we have planned. We do plan on doing the planning phase for Remembrance Park. And then some significant ones in the Capital Projects Fund, the 303 Fund. We have the $710,000 for roads plus the $170,000 for sidewalks. Those have been recurring. We started that last year, and so those will continue. And then you got the water fund, several projects that we discussed a little bit last time. Ms. Craig is here. If there's any specific questions you have on any of the projects, she can answer some of those. And then, of course, you got stormwater, and then our vehicle replacement fund. I can show a Excel sheet of the vehicle replacement fund and how it's laid out, but those would be the vehicles that we'll be funding in 25 if the vehicle replacement fund stays intact. 301 fund, this highlights that we do have the Tequesta Park. The 301 fund is mainly funded through the surtax fund and the utility tax. This shows the Tequesta Park at $931,000, of which $340,000 was approved by the state for us to move forward with a planning phase of Tequesta Park. Our 5-year bridge improvement plan, this is really a 2-year shot. The first year is to take care of the planning and some the minor things we can take care of. The next year we would fund $350,000 for the bridge improvements. That, and then the capital, the 303 fund is the capital projects. We said we've budgeted $710,000, the $170,000 for the sidewalks, and then we have a Tequesta Park FERDAP grant. It's a 50-50 matching. We put in $150,000, we get $150,000 out. A lot of the projects that we have funded through that is at Tequesta Park. I think all the projects that we have for that FERDAP grant is at Tequesta Park. And then we also have a transportation plan and mobility planning, $125,000. We have had initial talks with the TPA about receiving $50,000 to help us offset the cost of that. I believe that's still ongoing as we approve this funding. We will be applying for that funding to help us get through. As you guys know, throughout the county right now, the big talk is mobility planning, transportation, and so in order to receive some of the mobility funding options, we have to have a mobility plan and a fee structure set up with it, similar to Gardens or Lake Park, which has already done that. I think we've been trying to work toward this for the last 2 years just through grants. We have not been successful with the grants. Of course, we never went the TPA option, but Jay did have a conversation with TPA, and they do have some funding that we may be able to utilize to help us offset some of the costs for that. Water Utility Fund, we are proposing a rate increase of 3.5%. The water treatment plant upgrades, energy source improvements, $6 million. Water system interconnection project, $100,000. The water main replacement project, phase 2, Beach Road, is 4.3. Filter plant media replacement is $500,000. Water main and raw water main relocation, county line bridge, $1.2 million, and then the relocation of concentrate disposal. Just to summarize those, the bottom two are both kind of, we'll say, mandated projects by the projects. The relocation of concentrate disposal, we've been working on that for several years. That's with the FDOT bridge. The county line bridge project is, they're redoing that bridge. We have 2 lines on there that we have to relocate I would say the water treatment plant upgrades and the water main replacement on Phase 2 of Beach Road, we've been working through those for the last, I'll say, I know they've been on the radar for a while, but we're really getting to the stage where we're going to make those happen. So those have been in the planning stages the last, we'll say, year to year and a half. We are in line for the SRF funding. That'll be a big portion of how we fund those projects. So I know we were on the water main replacement program for Beach Road, was on the SRF funding for May. We were not funded. We will be applying back, I think it's August, for the next round of funding for that. Refuse and recycling, this is one that you guys will be hearing in August, is Waste Management increased to 3.5%. They will be bringing us a proposal to extend our contract 5 years. They do plan on going to an automated recycling program like they have in Jupiter and the other surrounding cities. So if we go with that program, they can help keep the cost down. If we do not go with an automated and do not renew, we'll be likely going out for bid, and or their cost will be, super high. So I think, you guys will get that presentation from Waste Management in August and make a decision what's the best approach to move forward with that. And then the Stormwater Fund, as you guys know, we've been really trying to straighten this fund out over the last couple of years. We are proposing a 5% rate increase, which equates to 56 cents a month. The Dover Ditch Bank Restoration Project, hopefully we'll get that done this year. I know it's under permitting. We're waiting for that permit. This is in conjunction with the town of Jupiter, who are still committed to that project with us as well. And then we have $87,000 in stormwater pipe replacements, which is kind of a drop in the bucket for where we really need to be. But I think obviously we're trying to hold off on some projects, try to build that fund back up, and try to get to where we can be, I'll say, comfortable in that fund. This is a new proposed vehicle replacement fund. So this slide shows $1.547 million. The other slide was 1.1. This is combined, so this is with all the funds. We have, just kind of give a summary, we have $249,000 that we have coming out of this budget from the Palm Beach County contract that we have. That'll go into this fund, as well as $178,000 out of the general fund to cover the police vehicles. We also plan to transfer $500,000 plus the $249,000 we've been saving up for Palm Beach County, and that'll help start the fund. The funds will be separate, so the money that we're pulling over from Palm Beach County, that'll be separate to large vehicles in our vehicle replacement fund, and the other funds will be for the smaller vehicles, public works, rec, those types. The building fund will also be contributing to this fund. They'll have their own separate wing of this fund. They have $10,000, $10,109, and they will be seeding it with $75,000. The water fund, another wing of this, they will be putting in $59,000 of operation, and they will be seeding it with $225,000. The idea of this is that way over time we will have a steady flow, a steady expense for cars and vehicles over time, and we won't have to go year to year going, oh, are we going to afford this? Are we going to give up a park? Or are we going to? It'll almost be like an automatic thing. Every year we know which vehicles are going to be replaced. I don't know if that was the last slide. It's not, but I'm going to show this for you guys. I don't know how well it's going to come out on the Zoom for Patrick, but on this you'll see that every vehicle that we have is put into a life cycle. So most of the vehicles, public works vehicles, non-public safety, are on a 12-year cycle. We do have the police vehicles are typically on a 5-year cycle. It doesn't matter if you're leasing or purchasing, that's typically the cycle you put police vehicles on, because they're running pretty much 24/7, or at least when they're on shift, they're always on. And and that way they can get to their car and take off quick if they needed to. So this was the general fund, the vehicle purchase vehicle fund. The large fund purchases, it shows, and it has all of our fire vehicles set up and when they're going to be replaced. And so you'll see that we will be cash funding even the largest vehicles over time. And so I think in the future, when we get to those points, we won't be talking about, kicking the can down the road, which is, I think, is the easy thing to do when you're talking about $1 million purchase. You start talking about, maybe we can get to it next year. Well, this way we'll have the funds available when it's time to replace those vehicles. Same thing for the building department, and then the water fund has its own vehicles. They're also on a 12-year cycle. So I know Jeff helped put this together, and I applaud him. I think this would be a big step for us if we can go through with a vehicle replacement plan. I know there's a handful of cities that have some sort of vehicle replacement fund. I think it's well overdue for the village. So hopefully we can, you guys will take that recommendation. We can move forward with that. And the last slide is just the decision points. We're really early in the process still, but this just talks about what needs a simple majority vote, 2/3 vote, unanimous vote in order to pass the budget. So with that, I can answer any questions you have. Mr. Snyder is here, can help. Ms. Craig is here, can help with utilities.
Thank you, Jeremy. Council, any comments or questions?
I have a few comments and questions. I'm gonna jump.
No, go ahead.
First, thank you, council and staff, and previous council as well. This my first budget through the village, but I've analyzed probably 50 other municipalities over the last few years for my work outside of here, and it's extremely transparent and easy to read. Any resident can go online and find the agenda packet. They can look at the slideshow. The slideshow actually matches the PDFs, right? I know it sounds funny, but that's a huge thing. So thank you guys for putting that together, because that does take extra time for staff to break it down into a digestible packet. Question on vehicle replacement. Originally we were at 500,000, but I'm looking at the packet and it says startup cost of vehicle replacement fund of nearly 1 million. So maybe I'm thinking two different things, but I wanted to clarify. I have nearly 1 million for a vehicle replacement startup, and then it looks like we have total police vehicles of 1.2 million over that to 2029.
Right. Let me see if I can at least summarize that. So we planned on taking $500,000 from our reserves to seed that. That was kind of step one of the process. The other part of the process was we already had $249,000 from Palm Beach County that we've been putting aside 50% of the monies that they send us for the service. So we had 2 years of that. So we're going to transfer that into that. That's going to really help with the large vehicles. And then we're also putting in the $249 that they're going to give us in the next budget cycle. We'll put that into the fund that helps for the large vehicles. So I think just with that, you're at $1 million. And then we also have $178,000 in the general fund expenses to start the program, the first year payments of the vehicle. So I think that's the $1.179 million that we're at. That's just the general fund expenses. Did that help or did that hurt?
No, that's perfect,
Okay.
because it's 1.1 in this packet, but it's 1.179 or something.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense, because we really talked. I'm not crazy thinking we talked 500. But
No.
250. Okay.
Right, but 500, I will say new money, because we've already had the 250 that we were already setting aside. We're just dragging that over to the vehicle replacement fund to make it official now. Because it was just allocate, it was in our reserves, but it had a tag to it.
Okay.
So.
And then just for record, so it's on record for public, that coming from the reserves, this is the overage on top of our 3-month operating costs that we have. So, because I think last workshop, we were expecting a 1.5 million overage, and now with the updated property tax info, we're at the 1.7. So just want to put that on record. That's not coming from our operating reserves, the 3 months that we worked so hard to build up. This is above and beyond.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that. Waste management. I see that increase, and I felt that the presentation, there wasn't negotiations going to happen. It was, this is the price. And at first I didn't like that at all. And my initial reaction is, okay, well, we're gonna go elsewhere or look elsewhere when you're pitching us that we don't really have an option here, especially in front of the public. But then speaking to other municipalities, they are still the best deal in town and good service, and we should not even think about going anywhere else. So it still pains me to be treated in that manner. However, I am seeing that maybe it's still the best idea going forward. And the last comment, capital improvement funds, phenomenal. Shoring up the capital improvement funds. Vehicle replacement makes sense. You guys have already knocked out huge ladder truck engine, which is the most. I do want to make sure that as we shoring those things up, we do focus on employee salaries also, that if we are shoring up these larger funds, we make sure that we're shoring up our employee salaries as far as being competitive. I know we're in fire negotiations now. Next year we're going to be in police and general employees, I assume. And I want to make sure we keep an emphasis on that and not just shore up only those capital improvement items.
I will, just because I didn't touch on it, when you talk about the capital and shoring those up, I think there's still a part missing is that we are not addressing yet the surtax money, the loss of that. And I think that's still, that hasn't, we didn't address in the budget at this point. We do have $588,000, and you'll see that in this fund. That's set aside, or I say set aside. It's left over in the capital projects fund. That's the Remembrance Park funds. So I know we talked about 650. The other part, after we did all the ins and outs and everything, we have $73,000 that is in our allocate to fund balance. That if you put those two together, we have $650,000 for Remembrance Park. In theory, those funds, after we do whatever we do with Remembrance Park, can be used to supplement the surtax funds. So there is some direction that we can go with that, but that is one area that still needs to be shored up. But I hear you about the salaries.
Understood. Thank you. And I guess I make that with the intention of capital improvement infrastructure is an issue. But I want to make sure that we do focus on those employees, and if we have to give a little bit on a vehicle replacement fund, that I have intentions or willingness to do so. Thank you.
Patrick?
You go ahead, Rick, or somebody.
Okay. My comments, as Jason mentioned, thank you, Jeremy, and all the department heads. Tremendous job. I know you said budgeting doesn't just start 90 days ago. It's all year round. So we know that's a big part of your day, and we don't always remember that. So thank you. The Vehicle Replacement Fund, I think it's a great initiative, so congratulations on that. The 403, the Stormwater Fund, the 5% increase, I think that's okay. The 402 Fund, the Refuse and Recycle, I'm okay with that increase. As was just discussed, I think that's really where we have to go and where we need to go, and based on the experience of other municipalities that have gone down to paying twice as much and getting half the collection dates, we don't want to be there. So while it hurts a little bit, especially from a percentage standpoint, it really looks exaggerated, but I think it's where we need to be. Jeremy, I think it's slide 15 and slide 19, that the 301 fund, the Tequesta Park allocation.
It would be that 301 fund.
Yeah, I think slide 15 might have been the, that's the Excel spreadsheet. Slide 15, I think.
15? Would have been this one.
Yeah, further down, yeah.
That one.
So in that one, we've got the Tequesta Park improvements for $931,000, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Of which 340 is the appropriation from the state. So we're in for roughly 590,000. There's that FERDAP grant and the capital improvements request for 150. Now is that the appropriation is allocated just for the 340 is just for the planning purposes, correct? getting the plans drawn up?
That's right. This, the whole 931 is for the planning of
The park.
the park.
How about the 150 in the FERDAP grant? What is that available?
I mean, the list, there's a list. Some of it is, I mean, there's some safety lighting, basketball courts. It's a lot of like smaller items that typically lend itself to the master plan.
Okay. What concerns me about this, it's been one of our council priorities for the last 2 years that I've been involved with is getting this funding in. We went for $1.2 million and didn't get anything, and then this year we went in for 600 and they cut us down to, they got it in half to 340, and all this allocation of the 931 is all for planning purposes. What do we think is it a rule of thumb that it's about, say it's 10% of the overall project? Do we think we're going to have a plan that's going to tell us we need $9 million?
Yeah, so I think, so we did, going back to the start of that, we did a master plan for Remembrance Park, and then we did like an estimate of probable costs, and they came out with roughly, it was like nine point something million. And so then we, took, and part of that, there was a breakdown of what the planning cost was, and that's what they came up with, and I forget the percentage, but I'm guessing it was like right around 10% for the planning costs, and I think that's how we get the 931.
Okay. My concern with this is that we are going to develop a plan that's going to sit on the shelf. And because if we go back and say, it's $9 million, and we ask for $4.5 million, and with us losing the sales tax sunsetting, and that's about $700,000 a year. I mean, I just don't see where we have $4.5 million to go back to do that. So it keeps me up at night. It gives me a little bit of heartburn, even though we've advocated for this for the past 2 years of going this. And I went with our mayor and with you, and we went up, and Molly stood up in front of the legislative delegation and advocated for funding for this. But I'm just concerned that we're going to have a plan that we can't fund and we can't execute. And we can take that $600,000 plus the 150 FERDAP grant, and perhaps maybe we can value engineer something over the next several years and keep that as a line item. So I just wanted to throw that out there and see what the feedback was. And I apologize because this was on my mind at the last meeting we talked about the budget, and it totally slipped my mind because I didn't see it specifically. So I wanted to the reason I'm bringing it up today is because I forgot to bring it up a month ago. And I just want to know if we can have dialogue in this environment, in this chamber, about, does anybody else have that concern? Or I'm just worried that we're going to have a plan that we can't fully execute and we can't fully fund.
So I know, during I think it was even before the first meeting, one of my meetings with Jeremy, I feel like that 931, I mean, that seems like a very high cost for design for a park. We're not designing structures, like they're, so I almost say like, are we gonna go out for multiple proposals for that design? So first, I want to see what the numbers come in at with the proposals, because I just think that's high for design cost for a park. So I want to see that because I had the same question. That's a pretty high number. And when we were lobbying for the funding and for the design, we were very clear with everyone I spoke with, like, we will come back for requesting funds for construction if it gets to that point. So that would be another endeavor, because again, since it's a state-owned park, we don't want to foot the entire bill. I think we should foot some of it, but not all of it. So we were very clear, and our lobbyists have been very clear too, like, we'll be coming back for construction costs too when we get to that point. It is a big number. So, but my gut was like, let's see what the proposals come in at. Like, we can budget for it, see what the proposals come in at, and go from there. And then when it becomes time for construction too, I agree, like, you can value engineer it. So, if it's price tag's too high, let's scale it back a little bit and see, where we can realize some savings. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely crossed my mind. Like I said, we had earlier conversations before our first meeting. But I think we should budget for it and, again, go through the RFP, see what the bids come in at, and just kind of take it step by step.
Okay, thank you.
And what does that look like post-budget? We come out and it's $600,000 instead. Do that $300,000 is coming back into the general fund? What is that? How does that actually work?
So these funds are out of the capital improvement fund, so they're out of the surtax fund. So, you know, if say we decide not to use that 590 of our own money, it would just be in the surtax fund that we can use for capital projects, and it would help stretch it out. Instead of it ending in December 25, we might have an extra, you know, be able to use it, you know, into 26 or whatever if we didn't use it. You know, I think the other portion, the second phase to it, and I think we're talked about, you know, putting it out for bid, see if we get a lower price. If we do get a lower price, I think the part of the conversation should be, you know, I think a big reason why we had success this past year in even getting 340, obviously the mayor did a lot of work, but also we set some money aside to match. And so then when we start talking about capital money, like, are we gonna start setting some money aside so we'll be able to have a match to take to the state for future? So I think that's gotta be a part of the conversation if we're talking about not only, you know, asking the state for $4.5 million, but are we gonna put 10% aside to match? Or 20, I think we did 25% this last time. So, you know, that'll have to be a conversation that we know we're gonna have to absorb some of that if we really wanna have a good shot of being successful at the state level.
Makes sense, thank you.
But do we, the planning process, it's not my expertise. Where are we in that, and when do we think we'll get some feedback? What we're looking to, if we get planning this year for the 931, nothing would happen until the 25-26 budget.
Right.
If we had to go looking for state funding for construction, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be at least one more year before we went to the state with something like that, because it's probably, I think when he told me it was like a 6 to 8 month, like to get the plans, you know, drawn up and, you know, public feedback and all that. And then, so we'd be talking about the next funding cycle. So the next budget cycle, maybe in the strategic plan, we really talk about, is that gonna be a priority for us to set some money aside for matching?
So the 931, our 591, but the 340, if that is available to us for how long? I mean, it was approved in this budget year, the state appropriation. So do we have to utilize that?
I think they did put a time limit on it. I want to say it was, let me go back and check.
Okay.
I asked that question, I got an answer, and I can't remember what
Okay,
it
yeah,
was.
just to make sure that if we have that, at least for the planning purposes, but for step one, right, Mayor, is just get the RFP out for the proposals?
Yeah, for
And then
design.
You feel that number's a little bit high on your
I
experience?
do. It seems like a lot based on what we're designing there. There's no structures. It just shouldn't be.
Okay.
You're gonna have some electrical work and drainage and stuff, but it's not. Yeah, it just seems pretty high for the scope.
I just wanted, to throw that out there, that's one thing that keeps me up at night on this budget, so.
That's a good point, thank you. I know we were using that rule of thumb, the 10%, so when you said that, if we're talking 2 phases and $4.5 million each phase, we don't have enough for the first phase.
Yeah. And there's other grants too that I know our lobbyist has been looking out for that, for construction too. So like I say, it's not gonna be a fast process. Like, it's not like the plans are done, let's start construction. It's gonna be just like it took us, 3 years to even get funding for just design. So it's a long haul kind of thing, unfortunately. I hate to say that.
Yeah. Those are all
Since we don't, want to fund it, at this time, council doesn't seem in favor of funding it, all ourselves. So,
Those are all the comments that I have at this time, Mayor.
yeah.
Thank you.
I'll just quickly comment on what we were just discussing. I tend to agree. I think the number is a little high, kind of caught me off guard, but I do also agree that I think we have to budget for that and just hope that the number comes down. But that's the number we have right now, so that's what we need to include in the budget. I'll hold my comments, or I can go now, Molly, if you want.
Yep, go ahead. I think Vice Mayor was done.
Okay, mine will be quick, largely because I have a ticking time bomb behind me as a child. So no, listen, I think you guys did a fantastic job, staff, everybody involved. I love, I understand that it's going up by $6 million over last year, but I think what that $6 million is going towards are well, they're great projects. I mean, the vehicle replacement fund, I think, is a fantastic idea, which is heard you from the beginning, Jeremy. You know, the water fund kind of is what it is. There's a lot of capital improvements we have to do there. And let's see what else I have here. Obviously great that we're with our general fund reserves. Love that we're continuing to hit our target at 25%. Yeah, I think everything looks really good. I have a few other small comments, but I don't need to go in through all of them. I think they've all actually been discussed. So yeah, that's it. All right, thank you guys. I'm gonna mute it just for a minute, but I'm listening.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Painter. I just have two quick things on the vehicle fund. I had some of the same questions you did, Councilmember French, so I thank staff for elaborating on that a little more tonight. And then one of my questions too that I talked about with Jeremy is, you know, now that we're established the fund, we need some kind of guidelines or policy on, you know, the replacement. But you know, what they presented tonight, which is for the most part, you know, the police cars are 5 years, and then everything else, rule of thumb, besides the fire trucks and whatnot, is a 12-year cycle, plus or minus. So I thought that was reasonable. Like, after hearing that and seeing the spreadsheet, I'm like, I don't know if we really need a policy to go along with this fund. But so I'm comfortable with it, you know, how it is now. And then I just wanted to follow up on some of my utility projects for the water fund, the questions I had last time. One of them is, I know the RO concentrate disposal is shown on 2025, but I think that is happening this year. So should that be on 2025, or should we remove that? Because that's 660,000.
What slide was that?
Oh, I'm on page 23 of 67 of the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Marjorie Craig, Utilities Director. We expect it to happen this year, but just like all DOT projects, sometimes there's things get, or county projects, we're sort of at the mercy of how the project goes. So we had put it in this year as well, and so just in case, we put it in for next year. But we do expect it to be completed this year. So you are correct.
Okay, is the contract issued for it?
We have the contract ready. We are ready to go as soon as DOT says, get over here and put your concentrate line in permanently. So we're waiting on them. And this is the Jupiter Vascular Bridge project. So
Okay.
whenever they're ready for us, we are ready to go. You guys were great. We brought it to the June council. Y'all were supportive. We have the contractor in place. They're, you know, we're in contact with DOT on pretty much a weekly basis. Hey,
Okay.
we're ready to go.
So I think if the timing works out and we, you know, they get the go-ahead August or even really early September, then we will remove it from the proposed budget because it'll be getting done right now. So, but it all depend on, you know, when we have to publish the agenda and budget and all that, but just depends on when they start it, because I think, you know, we thought they'd be going already. But now I think Marjorie was saying they told us August. So if they get going on that project, then we don't have to budget for it in next year's budget.
Okay.
That's correct. It's just I've been doing it a long time and I've seen it stretch out, you know.
Okay.
No matter what our best efforts are,
Right.
we're still at the mercy of others a lot of times.
So what would happen is if it didn't happen this year, the money that we had budgeted for will roll into the reserves, and then it'll be budgeted for, and we would pull from the reserves to fund it for the next year, which is what we have budgeted to do. So it's I don't want to say semantics, because that's not a good word, but I think just logistics probably depends on when they pull the trigger for that project will be if we remove the $600,000 from the proposed budget that you have in front of you.
Okay. That kind of goes into my next question that I asked last time, was making sure that we were just had a high level of confidence with the 2025 capital project cash flow there, because we have 14.8 million for 2025 and it drops down to 5.3 million in 2026. I know this year we've had 11 million plus or minus that didn't happen and is hitting next year now. So I just want to really make sure we have a high level of confidence that as it relates with schedule of the project, including design, planning, how long, any permits are gonna take, especially with others that we are waiting on often.
Bless you.
That, cause then I know sometimes you said some of the pipe replacements are like 18 to 24-month projects. So I just wanna make sure that we've really, taken a sharp eye to this, and we're confident that most of these projects are gonna hit in 2025. And I do understand that some of the costs might roll over if the contract's cut in 2025, that whole amount needs to be shown there, and we might have some rollover. But in light of just some of the projects that have been pushed, and we spent a lot of time on the fee analysis and increasing the fees and adding that capital recovery charge, I just want to make sure we're really as spot on as we can be. I know at the end of the day it is a projection, but just that there's a high level of confidence there.
Yes, Mayor. We believe that we can get those through. Now, we won't spend all of the money in 1 year sometimes, but you have to allocate, in my career, we've always had to allocate all the money in 1 year. You award it in that 1 year, but the spend might be over 2 years. It's just like the water main number 4 project, where we approved it 2 years ago, and it took a year before we could actually start it because the delay due to requirements for the state revolving loan fund. We got particular requirements, and then the just the delay in the supply chain. It took 18 weeks. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it.
Okay. All right, those are my only questions. Otherwise, yeah, just kudos to staff and everything. I know we have a couple more meetings to go, but I think we're close. And I said this has probably been one of the best budget cycles for me so far. We, haven't really been under the gun, and we're in a good place with our reserves now. So it feels really good, and it's really kudos to all the hard work you guys do. So thank you. All right, any other council comments or questions?
No, ma'am.
Any public comment? Okay, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Patrick.
See you, Patrick. See you, Ford.
Thank you, everyone. I apologize for not being there.
Yeah.